Welcome back, riders. This past Thursday, August 15th, 2024, after a full month of teasing a new attraction, Six Flags Great America announced Wrath of Rakshasa, a record-breaking dive coaster from Bolliger and Mabillard. In this video, I will be breaking down the new roller coaster coming to Chicagoland and giving all of my thoughts. As always, I have a few disclaimers before we jump into the meat of the video. One, I want to give a huge shout out to Six Flags Great America for including me in the media release for Wrath of Rakshasa. Six Flags Great America has been my home park practically my whole life, so it was really awesome to be able to cover a new attraction like this. Two, it goes without saying, but all credit goes to the park for all the concept art shown in this video. And again, I thank the park for letting me use it. Three, I'm going to be taking an extremely deep dive into Wrath of Rakshasa. Get it? Deep dive, dive coaster. But seriously, if you have not been able to figure out yet, I could talk for a very long time, and that is exactly what I will be doing in this video. If you want a shorter analysis, this is not the place for you, and there are already other channels that have covered that, but I want to look at virtually everything about this ride since it is my home park and I'm excited about it. So if you are looking for something in depth, you have come to the right place. Four, I just want to stress that I am super excited for this coaster. There are a fair amount of enthusiasts out there that have expressed disappointment either when it was rumored to be a dive coaster or even after it was announced. I want to make it clear that I am not one of those people. I am very happy about Wrath of Rakshasa. With that said, though, when it comes time to share my opinions and whatnot, I want to be completely honest, and there will be some instances where I say things like, I wish there was this, or I wish they did this, or that. I just wanted to preface that I'm not trying to complain when I say these things. No roller coaster is perfect. I'll always say various things I wish various roller coasters did instead. I've been on nearly 600 different roller coasters, and I could think of a handful of things I wish my number one roller coaster did differently. That's just the roller coaster enthusiast thing to do, and Wrath of Rakshasa is in the same boat. 5. I just wanted to put out a disclaimer. There's currently no POV at the moment. We do know the whole layout. The only thing we really haven't seen in action are the final turns. Alright, let's get started. I'll be starting with the facts and then move on to opinions and analysis. As I previously said, Wrath of Rakshasa is a record-breaking dive coaster from Swiss manufacturer Bolliger and Mabillard, or B&M for short. For those of you who are unfamiliar, a dive coaster is a roller coaster model that is characterized by two distinct features. One is the trains. Most roller coasters sit 2 or 4 people in each row. The amount of rows on roller coasters are a little more varying, but I would say around 8 to 10 rows is most common. The dive coaster does things differently. They have much wider rows, anywhere from 6 to 10 seats across. The offset of this is that there are less rows, most of them having 3 rows. The second unique characteristic is the drop, or more specifically, the holding brake. Most dive coasters hit 90 degrees or more on their drop, but that's not exclusive of dive coasters. The unique part of the drop on a dive coaster is the holding brake. There's a mechanism on the top of the drop that will have you dangling over the drop for multiple seconds. This is always a huge spectacle for onlookers and usually induces some of the loudest screams from riders across any park. So now that you know what a dive coaster is in general, let's get into the specifics with Wrath of Rakshasa. Wrath of Rakshasa stands 180 feet tall and drops 171 feet to the ground. The angle of descent is 96 degrees, which is beyond vertical and is the world record for being the steepest drop on any dive coaster. Presumably at the bottom of the drop you will hit the ride's maximum speed of 67 miles per hour, and then Wrath of Rakshasa has a track length of 3,239 feet. And during the course of the layout, you will go upside down 5 times, which is another world record for a dive coaster. The train specific to Wrath of Rakshasa will have 3 rows of 7 seats, which equates to 21 riders per train, with the roller coaster having 3 separate trains. The seats and restraints will be very similar to X-Flight, which I know might scare some of you when you hear that, but don't worry, as I would not expect Wrath of Rakshasa to have the same locking vest restraints that X-Flight has. The newer dive coasters have retractable vest restraints, so I see virtually no reason why they would go with locking vest restraints on Wrath of Rakshasa. I wouldn't worry about it. However, for the fluffy riders out there, I would expect the Verify to be similar to X-Flight. That would be the best comparison at Six Flags Great America if you're wondering if you'll fit or not. I would also anticipate seats with longer seat belts. I believe these have been in the middle seats of the new 7 Across dive coasters. Park President John Krajnak stated that the theoretical capacity is over 1,000 riders per hour. Partially helping with hitting theoretical capacity is that this ride will have lockers for loose articles. I would expect something like the coasters with lockers at Six Flags Great Adventure, except I anticipate these will be free, and I don't anticipate security breathing down your neck here. Wrath of Rakshasa will have a minimum height requirement of 52 inches. Let's move on to the layout. From the station, you will take a right-hand turn and engage with the lift hill. After climbing 180 feet, you will take a small turn to the left where you will line up with the aforementioned 171-foot, 96-degree drop, after you're held at the top staring down for a few seconds, of course. After bottoming out, you will ascend an Immelman and exit by turning to the right. While making your way to the right, you will descend the Immelman, bottom out, and then ascend the next element, a dive loop. After you navigate the dive loop, you will climb into the third inversion. This will be a zero G-roll variant that will immediately be followed by a swooping, descending left-hand turn. After you bottom out, you'll navigate what looks to be a more standard zero G-roll. This will have you exiting to the left, pretty quickly entering the final inversion, which almost looks like a cross between a barrel roll and a zero G-roll. After the ride's final inversion, you will make what looks to be a tight 180-degree turn to the left, followed by a less aggressive 360-degree turn to the right. From there, you will hit a set of brakes. After these brakes, there will be a turn to the right that will line up with more brakes and the station. Let's talk about the space this ride is taking up. It's quite impressive how they were able to fit this in the park without removing much. So here is a very rough top-down view of the layout and associated buildings in the area. I've seen other people draw up better ones, but this is the best you're going to get from me. But anyways, Wrath of Rakshasa is centered around the Buccaneer Battle plot of land, which is in the white-gray circle. Buccaneer Battle was a Mack Rides splash battle that had been standing but not operating since its closure in 2021. This is where the station, maintenance, queue, and majority of the second half of the ride will take place alongside majority of the lift hill in this area as well. Where this coaster got really creative is the first half of the ride. The end of the lift hill will venture over a park pathway, and the drop will be near where the old bloodshed haunt used to be. This will get extremely close to Demon. The track between the Immelman and the dive loop will be going behind the existing Totally Kickin' Chicken food stand, which I've gone ahead and put in the orange box. And then the bottoming out of the dive loop will be taking place in the existing green space or the lawn space in front of Demon. And then the third inversion and the following turn will be extremely close to the kiddie rides in Hometown Square, potentially even over some of the rides. And then the rest of the ride will be confined to the Buccaneer Battle plot of land. I wanted to quickly touch on the future of everything in this area. In the concept art, Demon Snacks is gone, it's missing, which is what we were expecting as it has sat empty this year, and this is presumably the area of the lift hill in the third inversion. However, John Krajnak said at the press conference that this building is in fact staying. He mentioned that the coaster will have a gift shop as an exit, but it was not clear to me if they're repurposing the Demon Snacks building into that gift shop, or if they're expanding the building so that it could be both food and a gift shop. I'm not entirely sure, but we know the physical building is staying in some capacity. Also, completely random, but I was like yesterday years old when I found out the structure is original to the park, so that's cool and it's nice they're keeping it. Speaking of demon snacks, what about a demon itself? Some of us were worried or thinking it was on its way out, but I'm happy to say that it will be staying. Perhaps what is more impressive is the fact that John Krajnak claims there will be no rerouting of Demon's queue or entrance or anything like that. And that really surprised me, and I'm interested to seeing if this is actually the case, as I feel like the dive loop, like where it bottoms out, is where Demon's entrance sign is, so I guess we'll see for sure this spring. Totally Kickin' Chicken, which is still in orange, will be staying. The game stand near Demon, which is in the red rectangle, is in the concept art and will also be staying. However, the games right by Buccaneer Battle, which is in the green rectangle, are not present in the concept art. Unlike Demon Snacks, I don't recall hearing from John Krajnak if these are truly staying or going. Time will tell. Let's take a step back and talk about the theming. During the second press conference of the day, the park put on a little acting gig and seemed to give Wrath of Rakshasa a backstory. I'm not entirely sure if the ride will in fact be themed with this story in mind, or if they just wanted to put something on for the press conference, but I will go ahead and share it anyways. So here's the story. Long before the theme park existed, there was a forbidden temple that held a malevolent and powerful demon. It was locked in a temple where it continued to grow. As the temple's prosperity waned, whispers of a long lost key capable of unlocking the temple surfaced. The park, like Six Flags Great America, the park, sent brave adventurers to find the key and unleash the wrath. The adventurers were able to retrieve said key, and the park went ahead and released what we know as the Wrath of Rakshasa. So again, whether this is what the park will try to convey when it opens next spring is not determined, but we'll find out. Talking more physical theming, John Krajnak was a little more hesitant to make promises on exact details as it became apparent that this is something they are still working on. But he said they want to do the ride right and make it whole. He said that the park has been in contact with designers for a few months now, so things like a portal or entrance, like a sign and the station, and he wants to do audio for the lift hill and some kind of sound for like the drop, kind of like Dr. Diabolical at Six Flags Fiesta Texas, like the laughing, whatever. Interestingly, he also talked about trying to retheme the surrounding area of Demon and Wrath of Rakshasa since they go together. Things like retheming Totally Kickin' Chicken and who knows what else. It would be a smaller area for sure, but he expressed interest in creating a small section of the park that has a darker tone, and that's what they were going for with Wrath of Rakshasa was a little bit darker. I had a one-on-one conversation with him, and he even mentioned that if they aren't able to create this area next year, he would still like to do it when they are able to. So it's nice that if they don't end up getting the budget for it next year, or they don't have enough time to do everything they want to do, that doesn't mean it will never come. Maybe down the road. Before we move on to analysis and opinions, I have a handful of other facts that stand on their own that I couldn't really fit with anything else I've talked about so far, so I'll just go ahead and list them off now. They are shooting to have this open around the standard late spring to early summer, specifically, they said Memorial Day. Work is already underway, and they are really striving to have it ready by the Memorial Day weekend, like I said, so they will be working on it during Fright Fest. That said, it may become necessary to close the pathway between, let's say, Lobster and like the games by Buccaneer Battle, the green rectangle I showed earlier. They said it might happen or it may not. Just be prepared if it is closed, as the walk to X Flight or American Eagle or Sky Striker or anything back there in County Fair, that walk is going to be brutal without this pathway. That said, if they do have to close this pathway, that should mean they are making good progress, so honestly, I'll take it if it happens. The go-karts and Yukon Territory have absolutely nothing to do with this project, so people hoping for that new pathway that cuts through the middle of the park are probably out of luck. Wrath of Rakshasa will also be on Flash Pass year one, although maybe not day one. If that's the case, though, it shouldn't be that long until it is on Flash Pass. However, it was not obvious if Wrath of Rakshasa will be on Flash Pass as a one-time only or unlimited. Alright, so now it is time to move on to analysis and opinions. And honestly, I want to start by defending the park on 3 points of emphasis that some roller coaster enthusiasts have been making. Of course, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but I personally believe some people have been a little harsh on these 3 points. First is the name, Wrath of Rakshasa. Some people have been saying this is a terrible name, and to those people, I can understand where you're coming from. Nobody knows what a Rakshasa is, myself included, at least when I first started covering this ride. It's a hard word to pronounce. I was slow and unsure if I was even saying it right when I first started covering this ride. And many of the analysis videos I've been watching so far, they take literally 10, 15, 20 seconds to purposely just say Wrath of Rakshasa, like they're kind of like making fun of it. And some people are just saying it wrong and they're honestly trying. So it is a hard word to say, and obviously it goes hand in hand that it's hard to spell too. I've seen plenty of people like on message boards and stuff incorrectly spelling it virtually everywhere. So I get where you're coming from, but come on, they could have just slapped Wonder Woman on this and called it a day, but they went with not only something super unique, but something that ties into Demon right next door. It's an intimidating and almost dark name, which is exactly what they were going for. And come on, it's not like people have not gotten past other coasters with strange names. Coasters like Valraven or Rougarou, we don't even bat an eye at those anymore. I just recommend you allow time to pass and you'll be on board. Just don't trash it immediately. I think I've nailed down the pronunciation since I've been saying it for a month now, so I believe you can too. And members of the general public say ride names incorrectly all the time. Rougarou and Valraven are good examples of that again, but they still understand what ride they're talking about, and that's what matters above all else. I just feel like people have been a little too harsh when we should be giving respect to the park for doing something unique that also ties in thematically. Speaking about the general public, that leads to a perfect segue for the second point of emphasis, which is the fact that Six Flags Great America went with a dive coaster. I've seen many enthusiasts voicing their displeasure with the choice and model. This was more predominant during the teasers when it became clear that the park would be adding a dive coaster, but after it was announced and people got a good look at the layout and stuff, it turned into, yeah, okay, this ride looks pretty good, but they could have gone with something else. I don't know, but something else. A lot of people have been saying that now, and many people say that Six Flags Great America's biggest gap in their lineup is a truly elite coaster. You know, that A plus coaster, that 11 out of 10 coaster, that top 50 ranked roller coaster. I completely agree with you guys. Don't think for a second I want a dive coaster over a Giga or a Mach Extreme Spinner. Of course, I want an elite coaster, but you guys have to remember that Six Flags is a business. As Kevin O'Leary would probably say, okay, but how do they make money? Coaster enthusiasts are a very, very small portion of the revenue parks bring in. The park doesn't need to spend $40 million on a Giga coaster just because some enthusiasts say they should, when they can add, a dive coaster for $20 million and get a very similar return on investment. Wrath of Rakshasa is surely going to be a hit amongst the general public. It will be a success for the park. It's a proven model. This is what they're in business for. And it's not like this roller coaster is insignificant. It will be the third tallest coaster in the park, second if you're sitting in the middle seat of Flash Vertical Velocity, fourth longest coaster in the park, or fifth if you want to count American Eagle twice, and fifth fastest coaster in the park. And overall, it's the third longest dive coaster in the world, longer than some of the hyper dive coasters. But I still see people riding off this coaster, which I just have a hard time seeing, to be completely honest. That's just something I need to get off my chest reading some of these comments. If you really truly don't like it, then I hope that means the line's shorter for me. And then the third point of emphasis is actually something I was not going to talk about at all, to be honest, but I decided I should include it last second because lots of people have been talking about this, and I felt it wouldn't be a proper analysis if I didn't cover as much as I could possibly. I am talking about that dreaded B&M rattle. I was not going to talk about it because it really does not bother me personally. I can marathon a ride like Diamondback non-stop, no problems. Obviously, the main concern with Wrath of Rakshasa is the roughness of Iron Menace at Dorney Park. Iron Menace opened this year and was quite rougher than a new roller coaster should be, so lots of people are either worried about Wrath of Rakshasa being rough, or they're just already writing it off because they believe it will be rough. And I have a couple of counters to that. One, guys, nobody has ridden this coaster. You're calling it rough when it might not even physically exist yet. Need to pump the brakes and reserve judgment until people ride it. Two, you would hope B&M would be able to take corrective action after Iron Menace. Maybe they have discovered flaws or issues that they'll be able to correct on Wrath of Rakshasa. Three, I honestly think the B&M Rattle is mostly an issue with roller coaster enthusiasts. I rode Iron Menace a few times, and not once did I hear anyone from the general public say, "Oh, that was rough," something like that. Same thing with other B&Ms with rattles, like Diamondback or Behemoth. I'd never hear anyone from the general public talking about a rattle. It's like I don't see the general public having any issue with Wrath of Rakshasa if it has a rattle. And again, the opinion of the general public is what matters most. I trust that B&M will be able to prove from Iron Menace, and I think we just all need to wait until we actually ride it. Let's move on to the ride itself, and I have to say I am thoroughly impressed, and I was shocked when I saw how they were able to squeeze it all in the way they did. The only ride we lost was Buccaneer Battle, which has already been closed for years, so it doesn't even feel like it's replacing anything at all since it's been gone for 2, 3 years now. If you recall in my official prediction video, I was hesitant to include the go-karts in the plot of land that this coaster would take up. There was just this gut feeling I didn't think the go-karts would be closing, but I wasn't really sure how this B&M dive coaster would fit without including the go-karts, but now we know. And lesson learned yet again, never underestimate engineers and designers. It's exciting that we got both a large-scale coaster and we still have the go-karts land to play with in the future. Big W. An even bigger W is that Demon is staying. At least in my opinion. I know some people don't care for Demon, but I do, so I'm thrilled to see it staying, even if that's kind of what I expected. It's just a relief to see it confirmed. And naming and theming an entire new roller coaster to go alongside Demon only makes the longevity of Demon look more promising. Let's talk about what everyone else has been talking about, the layout. I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. I know I'm in the minority when I say this, but I actually wanted a mid-course brake run, at least at first. The other two dive coasters without mid-course brake runs, Emperor and Iron Menace, are my bottom two dive coasters. To me, the main selling point of the dive coaster is the drop, so having that mid-course and getting a second drop was valuable to me. And it often makes the second half more floaty, which I personally prefer. That's why I controversially like Valraven more than Yukon Striker. Valraven has a much better second drop and has better hang time. Plus, having a mid-course helps with ride duration. But based on seemingly everyone else's comments, they prefer dive coasters without mid-courses. You all have been saying it helps with the pacing, which I totally agree with. I see it, it's evident in the concept video. Another reason why I feel I wanted the mid-course was because the two without them, Emperor and Iron Menace, those rides feel short to me, while other rides, or dives, I should say, Dr. Diabolical, the hyper dive coasters out there, they don't feel like short rides. They feel fine. But it appears that Wrath of Rakshasa should not feel like a short coaster. It has 1,000 more feet than Emperor and Iron Menace. Granted, that doesn't make it a long ride, since you'll still be blitzing through the ride, but I don't have any concerns now that I think this will be a short coaster once I ride it. The more and more I look at the concept video, the less and less I miss the mid course. I was definitely surprised and slightly disappointed the minute I found out it had no mid course, but now I'm perfectly okay without it, at least until I ride it. So, mid course aside, what do I think of the actual layout? This is something that has also grown on me every time I watch a concept video. Of course, the big selling point of the dive coaster is the drop. And I'm getting really excited for this drop, almost to the point that I'm worrying that I'm overhyping it for myself. This is because I really like the drop on Iron Menace, more so than Dr. Diabolical for whatever reason. Maybe I think that because Dr. Diabolical is a more complete experience with a lot of memorable moments, while Iron Menace is more of like a blur. But I'm thinking to myself that if I really liked Iron Menace's 152-foot drop at 95 degrees, then I will love Wrath of Rakshasa's 171-foot drop at 96 degrees, right? It's bigger and steeper. So I hope that's the case when I ride it. I would have loved to have literally anything other than an Immelman after the first drop. So unfortunately, I'm not too excited for this. I've seen this play out how many times now? It's boring and unoriginal, but I get why it's the classic move, so I'm not surprised. Some people have been almost making fun of the fact that the Immelman is followed by a dive loop, as a dive loop is pretty much the inverse or reverse of an Immelman. This is something I actually don't mind at all. In fact, I actually really like Valraven's dive loop, so I'm excited for this one as well. And then, of course, everyone has their eyes on the third inversion, including myself. This inversion reminds me a lot of Dr. Diabolical's second inversion. They both step up into a zero G roll that exits through a descending turn. The big difference with the one on Wrath of Rakshasa is that they opted to have the roll twist the other way, thus creating more rotation. The exit of this inversion should be pretty nuts, and more on that in a second. And the following swooping descending turn looks like it should produce some nice positive Gs. After that is what some people have been calling a demonic knot, basically interlocking zero G rolls. The first inversion of the two seems to be a fairly standard zero G roll, just a little incomplete as it never levels out, rather it goes into a turn. The second inversion seems like a mix of a zero G roll and a heartline roll. After that fifth and final inversion, the ride takes a fairly compact 180-degree turn to the left, and then switches to a wider 360-degree turn to the right, which leads to the brakes. This is the only portion of the ride that didn't get a ton of love in the concept video, as it seems the park didn't want to show off, turns. It's the most boring part of the ride, so I get it, but I'll take more coaster track whenever I can. Something I've got my eye on. It'll be interesting to see how much speed this coaster has at the end. Dive coasters bleed off speed rather quickly, but the concept video seems to show a good amount of speed for the last two inversions. Of course, it can always run differently in person. I think it'll just be interesting to see if these inversions have force or hang time. One thing I wanted to touch on that I'm slightly disappointed about is the lack of airtime. Of course, dive coasters are not meant to be airtime focused rides, and it's apparent the park wanted to go for the inversion record. Me personally, I'd probably trade an airtime hill for one of the last two inversions because I really like the airtime hill on Dr. Diabolical, even the one on Valraven's okay. Of course, it'd be better if they could just squeeze this in at the end of the ride without sacrificing one of the inversions, but I digress. That said, I have my eyes on a couple of moments for airtime. First, of course, is the drop. Standard stuff. Second is that aforementioned exit of the third inversion. This looks really snappy, and I could see it giving some good air. Third is a little bit of a stretch. It's kind of one of those we'll have to wait and see, but maybe, just maybe you'll get some weightlessness on the transition between the last two turns of the ride. I feel like if it's carrying a lot of speed at this point, then maybe, but I'm not expecting it. Something I wanted to talk about is the scale of this coaster and what it means for Six Flags Great America. When it became clear that the park could get a dive coaster, I was asking myself if they would get a 7-seat train or an 8-seat train. It's a weird proposition because I thought Six Flags Great America was deserving of both. The park definitely has more demand than the parks that have the 7-seat dives, yet not as much demand as the parks with 8-seat dives. And of course, the 8-seat dives require significantly bigger track, which means more money, which meant that Six Flags probably was not going to do it. So I did settle in with 7 seats, especially when the teaser said 7. That kind of confirmed it for me. But I also knew Great America would want to do something bigger than the other parks with 7-seat dives. So I think they found their sweet spot by sticking with the 7-seat train while making it taller, steeper, faster, and longer. Pretty sure I called that out in my Six Flags Great America video essay, just saying. But good on the park for that. I think they made the right move here. Related to the bigger scale of this coaster, guys, this is exactly what the park needed. Everybody wanted a coaster that was not short and had a respectable capacity. This coaster checks both boxes. No, it's not the longest coaster. I don't think anyone will consider it long at all, but it's average. It won't feel short. We're probably looking at a similar ride time as X-Flight, and nobody says X-Flight is short. And then the capacity. John Krajnak claims it has a theoretical capacity of over 1,000 riders. I'm no El Toro Ryan, but if I'm doing math right on my end, to hit just 1,000 riders an hour even, not more than 1,000, just 1,000, a train needs to dispatch once every minute 15 seconds. That's not impossible, but I don't think that'll be sustainable over an entire day, but we'll see. This should easily hit 800 riders per hour, and I don't know if Max Force or Joker or Goliath are even sniffing that many riders. The park could have gone away with 2 trains, especially without the mid-course, but they still went with 3, which I am a huge fan of. Even if they were to double stack every single time, it's so valuable to have 3 trains versus 2 from a maintenance standpoint. If one train needs to be transferred off, there's a huge difference between running 1 train and 2 trains. So I'm extremely happy they went with 3 trains. And I do think it will help with capacity having 2 versus 3. So there is that, but I'm just saying theoretically, if they did double stack for maintenance, it's a great idea too. I think Alpine Fury should take some notes. But anyways, and just remember, guys, this project had no input from Richard Zimmerman and Cedar Fair executives. This is the work of Salim Basul and his leadership. And it does seem like the park had some input too on their level. So good on everyone for doing it the right way. That said, without the mid-course, it will be much easier to double stack. I noticed in the animation video that Wrath of Rakshasa will have retractable floors, which I was a little surprised to see since the other 7-seat trains, Dr. Diabolical and Iron Menace, do not have retractable platforms. Now, there could be a perfectly sound reason why Wrath of Rakshasa has retractable floors that I am unaware of. If there is, definitely let me know in the comments below, as I would be interested in hearing why. But if this was just an aesthetic choice, since it does sound and it looks cool, I get it. I would be a little disappointed if it was just for aesthetics, since the action of lifting the floor down and back up adds time to each dispatch. This is really valuable time on a coaster without a mid-course. Something else I would like to see to help hit interval is an aggressive brake run and investment into this station. B&M likes to play things safe, so I'm betting against seeing any drastic improvements, but even if they could find a way to get a new train in the station 2 seconds faster than their other installations, that adds up over time. Don't underestimate that. Also, relating to capacity is the fact that Wrath of Rakshasa will have lockers. I know I talked about it earlier in the video, but I think it's great they'll be using these. It was necessary since this coaster will go over the park pathway multiple times, but it's still nice to see. As of right now, the park is undecided if there will be metal detectors or not. What I would really love to see is no bins on the platforms. Being able to have people just sit in a seat without lollygagging across a platform would be so nice. If they could have no loose articles and no bins on the platform, their chances of hitting 1,000 riders per hour improves a considerable amount. Not sure if they will go that far, especially since people love to remove their shoes on dive coasters for whatever reason. I'm wondering if Cedar Fair executives will have any input on this, as the merger is now official and this is something that is still undecided most likely. So, Richard Zimmerman and all of them could step in and give some input here. Lastly, I want to talk about the theming. First off, not necessarily theming, but I love how this coaster will be crossing over the pathway. The coasters at Six Flags Great America are pretty well confined. Only Demon and Joker go over park pathways, and they both do so in manners that don't really create any energy. Rather, Rakshasa is going to take a demanding presence on the midway. You're going to be able to walk directly under an 180-foot tall roller coaster, which is just crazy. Whether you are brave enough to ride the coaster or not, you will still come face to face with Wrath of Rakshasa in a way no other roller coaster in the park can provide. Now moving on to real theming, and this one's slightly harder to talk about. Like I previously mentioned, it seems like none of the theming aspects of the ride are official as of right now, but the park does want to make this a complete experience. Like they mentioned, a nice grand portal station and audio are starting points. I am personally stoked for audio. I am a huge fan of custom ride audio anywhere. And Six Flags Great America has recently taken a big interest in audio as well, as just this season they brought back X-Flight's Q and station audio from opening year, and Batman's Q music and Alfred's spiel. I'm also interested in seeing what kind of lighting package this will have. I imagine they will be able to do something pretty cool for the second half of the ride since it is both compact and relatively close to the ground. Something I was interested in alongside a few other people was if Wrath of Rakshasa will have any pre-shows. This is only a thought solely because Dr. Diabolical has two pre-shows of its own. You could definitely do something really cool with a dark theme like Wrath of Rakshasa, but I I just feel like we won't be seeing one. That's just my gut feeling here. No disrespect to John Krajnak, great guy, but Jeffrey Siebert is Jeffrey Siebert. Jeff does not set expectation. He doesn't set the bar. He exceeds them. And the pre-shows on Dr. Diabolical are entirely on him. And I feel like it would be a much harder sell for any other regional park or Six Flags park to get pre-shows. So I'm not expecting it, but maybe, just maybe they'll slip in at least one pre-show. I guess we'll have to see what kind of budget they have to work with. It seems like they want to do more theming for Rakshasa than any other coaster in the park. The benchmark is either Demon or X-Flight, both of which have an acceptable level of theming. I would be really pleased if Wrath of Rakshasa could meet. Beyond the level of those two coasters would be fantastic. And that's not even including the area retheme he would like to do. So I hope they get to do everything they want to do, but good luck. And with that, that is all I have for this video. I really tried to cover literally anything I could think of, so thanks for bearing with me on this very in-depth video. It's been a lot of fun covering this ride from teasers to announcement. I imagine the Wrath of Rakshasa videos will be slowing down from here on out, which is probably a good thing considering 8 of my last 9 videos have all been for Wrath of Rakshasa, but I do have exciting content coming up, including a very special trip in less than a month, so stay tuned for coverage of that trip. Let me know your thoughts on my thoughts in the comments below, and your own opinions as well on Wrath of Rakshasa. Thanks for checking out the video. Push down, pull up, exit to the right. Hope you enjoyed the video, and go have your greatest day yet. Choo choo, bye.